Hello.
Hey.
I was looking at my phone, making sure that Women That Shred is popping up on the social media platforms here. Hello, everyone. So this is crazy. I've been gone for a while, just gone from Women That Shred, gosh, for months now. So I feel kind of rusty, and this feels kind of exciting for me. I'm like actually a little bit nervous. So I always dive right in because we never have enough time. And my guest, I love speaking to her and hearing what she has to say. So I'm going to just go ahead and introduce Mosi Gatling, who happens to be a colleague and a friend of mine. And I'll let you just kind of give a little bit of intro and background and like what you want to share, because I'm sure there's so much about you, but I'll let you decide what it is that you want to let people know.
Okay, well, I guess we could start professionally. I'm a senior vice president of strategic growth and expansion at New American Funding. Super proud Black girl. How about that? And literally have been in mortgage for 25 years, but I'd have to take you out if I tell you my age along with that. So I have a lot of beliefs in mortgage and about the mortgage industry. And I think at this juncture in my career, I just got to the point where, you become a top producer and it's like, yay, I did that. But what am I going to leave in the mortgage industry? I want my children, my parents to be super proud of me. And it's got to be more than just Mo did a ton of loans. But what can Mo do to impart something or leave something on the mortgage industry that betters it and maybe helps the people that we're serving?
I love it because I do feel like you are leaving a legacy. Like, I don't know if you see it, but from the outside kind of looking in, I see you as someone that literally is changing the landscape of the mortgage industry because of just even changing the terminology, changing the wording, like all of it. And the way you explain it, I want you to explain it to the audience because you do it in such a way that makes so much sense. And it's kind of like, why aren't we changing things? Like,
Right.
if you know what I mean? So I want you to kind of share a little bit about what you're doing because I truly believe you're a trailblazer with all of it, really.
Thank you.
And then we've got Anthony Kaza, who just came in, who's a big fan of yours. Oh my gosh. Like, hey. Yeah, and then Christina, who's a huge fan of the show. She's not even in the mortgage industry. She's a teacher, but she gets a lot of insight from here. So I think she's going to be able to like also relate to what you have to say. So tell us, yeah, a little bit about why you believe it's really important that we change the language.
It's time, girl, it's time. Let's real talk right now. It's time. A lot of the industry jargon terminology that we use when we're helping consumers is dated. It's old. Like, let's start there. Yeah. It's old. And we just rolled with it from 1968 to now, right?
Right.
Since fair housing went into effect, a lot of the terminology that we used, and you got to think, this is post redlining, let's be clear. In the 30s and 40s, in HUD guidelines, it told underwriters to not approve mortgages for people to live in neighborhoods that didn't match their race. Okay, let's start there. That was a HUD guideline. Okay, so then we come to Fair Housing Act. They got to go strip all that back. And it's uncomfortable, right? And they come up with this terminology of calling people underserved. And I'm like, to me, that's kind of victim shaming, right? It's like, why are they not served? If we look inward and say, why are a group of people, a segment of people based on race or ethnicity not served? It's got to be our fault, right? And I say our because I'm in the industry too, right? Calling people just minorities when we're looking at the landscape of what America looks like. I mean, I'm in Las Vegas, and you're in California, so let's talk about the demographics in Vegas and California.
Yeah, not the minority here, and they're still being minorities.
7% of home closings in Vegas for now more than a year have been Hispanic. Yeah. So I feel that right now is a great time to really reflect inward. It's kind of like you wake up and God gives you the opportunity to be exactly who you say you are. So watch out who you pretend to be. It's one of those things. That's the day of reckoning that I feel that we're at. And I feel that everybody can benefit from this, not just mortgage, but real estate and home builders. And I'm not saying go out and hire someone that's DEI. I'm literally talking as companies diversify, not for reasons of DEI or to have a face that's Hispanic or Black, but reasons of really having lived experience, we can make better experiences for the consumer, change some of these old words that have stuck because it doesn't authentically connect with them. They don't resonate with these terms we've decided to call them or call things, and really go out and market these people in a way that they can see themselves buying the products that we offer, which is home ownership. So why not? Why not be bold and change it and speak out against these things? Because I do this for a living, but I can say mortgage is not sexy when it's laden with, oh, we help minorities and underserved people. And to me, I call it projecting poverty. Okay. Because you don't know who you're talking about, but I know that the body of my clientele is very diverse because I'm in Vegas. And some of the people that are Black that I serve play for professional sports teams. So I can't use marketing that just always talks about assistance and underserved and minority, and as if everything associated with Black home ownership equals no money, broke, poor.
But I love that you're saying it, because I think that's the problem, Jose, is that, and you and I had a really long conversation about this at Housing Wire at lunch, where a lot of people are afraid to say what you're saying. And so I love that you are so vocal about it and unapologetic and just really get right in there, because I'm sure these are conversations that are being had, but nobody wants to like publicly talk about it. And I love that you're doing it, because that's the only way that
I have good friends. Let's say that I have a friend that I think you've met, Shantae Patton Golar. She's amazing. Like, keep your weird friends close to you. I'm known to say that because she's the one that said, Mo, if you don't say it, then who? If not you, then who? And I'm like, well, because I could have sat in my corner and just kept originating loans and been successful and not really said anything or taken away from time that I can put in my business. But I really think it's something valuable that, like I said, everybody in real estate and mortgage can take from, because right now I feel like you're picking up buyers that are Hispanic and Black, and it's not really this authentic connection. It's not in a way that they like to consume content. It's just somebody decided like, hey, Black and Hispanic people might like this stuff. And it's like, why do you think that? It's nothing that resonates.
The whole taco thing you said.
Tacos, like, we are, the CEO at NAF is Hispanic, and she's like, everybody who's Hispanic isn't Mexican, and you can't just say because you're Hispanic you eat tacos. Like, Hispanic is such a very wide and diverse body of people as well, all over the world. You know, is encapsulated in being a form of Hispanic. And to assume that everybody speaks the same dialect, every Hispanic culture, their favorite food is tacos, like, that's unfair as well. But again, people just put you in a little bucket and say, oh, this is Hispanic ownership, go take it. And it's not anything that's been curated to really resonate with them. What's crazy is all public brands, like retail brands and things like that, they really do. They actually do. And if you are curious about, you know, trying to resonate with the Black community, Essence Fest just happened in Louisiana. And if you look at all their marketing from major brands like Coca-Cola and Dove, it wasn't like, let us assist you washing your hair. Who needs assistance? Like, I mean, again, like I always tell everybody, talk to the Black community like you would talk to Taylor Swift. Okay. If you can do that, then you can't go wrong. Talk to people like, again, they can afford to buy what you're talking about, or they have options because they have the ability to get funds from other places. It's us that give the ideas for them to be able to do it. So if we present them and not just present the poverty side of things, including the terminology, then I think that we can do more business as well.
Yeah. My whole thing is that, you know, we just kind of live in a world, and especially in the United States, I find like everybody really wants to pigeonhole somebody and be able to put them in a box and label them. Like we have this like in our head, and like at some point we have to get away from that. But it's like, I'm assuming it's little bits and pieces of like what you're doing that's going to get us to that place. And I know it's going to take a while, but it's something that I even try to talk about, where even it's difficult for me because when I post, for instance, on LinkedIn, there's times where I'll post something and I'm a little bit serious, but everybody kind of knows me as someone that is very goofy and has a sense of humor and this kind of crazy personality. When I don't do that, it's like it freaks people out because they're like, wait, I had you pegged as this type of person. You're not in that box that I have you in. This is really weirding me out. So it's like I find that it's even not even with race or anything. It's just people's
typecasting people, right? We do it unconsciously. We typecast people and try to say this is it. But I feel like Black home ownership is so much more. And to that point, when I talk about my clientele, it's like I've read numbers where 80% plus of the NBA is Black. So you got a bunch of millionaires running around, and none of the marketing and mortgage actually speaks to them. They do have family members that aren't millionaires, but you talk to them in a way that isn't attractive to them. So they use their money managers. Maybe more of them would come and get mortgages from IMBs. They just don't typically give us that time of day on their primary purchases, but maybe secondary. We just don't market to them in a fashion that takes those handcuffs of assistance laden marketing off, to be able to freely just market a group of people in a way that they like to consume content. So I think that, like I said, it's a lesson for the industry to maybe change it a little bit.
Oh, no, I agree. And I also love that when you were speaking on stage at Housing Wire, you were talking about how a lot of our lingo and our terminologies can be very triggering to people. And you brought up the idea around, when we talk about educating the consumer or, illiteracy. And I loved how you explained that in a way where you're like, wait, we are kind of also subconsciously making that person feel lesser than, and like we're above. So yeah, of course they're going to maybe not trust us as much because they already feel like you're putting them down there of like, we're educating you because you don't know anything, and nobody wants to be told that they don't know anything. So give me a little bit of that, because I loved what you had to say.
It's one of those things where when I stop saying, I feel like everybody can be educated. We can all learn. But now with technology, I can do it on YouTube. There's a million people on TikTok and Instagram that don't even have a license to talk about mortgages, right? Mm-hmm. So none of them say, hey, let me educate you. I think that if somebody walked up to me in a grocery store parking lot and gave me a flyer and said, hey, come to my education class, and this is anybody. You don't have to be Black. You don't have to be Hispanic for this to hit you the same way. You'd want to know why they think they can educate you. What qualifies them to say that they need to educate you, and why do they feel that you're not already educated in that? It's like, how do you have the audacity to address me in that manner? Because when you say educate, it is people that might be in the mind frame that I'm not educated at this. So when I'm talking about my business, I want to tell people what it takes to buy, but can I say it without telling them I'm going to educate them? Just get to the point, because they do it online all the time. Let's think about how the psychology of the modern day home buyer and how they consume content, what is pleasing to them, what sounds good to them. It's not, hey, let me educate you. And then you got to go explain why. If you just get to the point like they do online, right? When you're watching a reel,
like, you have this problem, this is how I can solve it.
This is how I can solve it. Let me tell you how to buy a home in 2024. Mythbusters. Let's talk about what it takes to get this done. I started doing events with home builders called Home Ownership and Tour. It gets to the point of what I want to do. I want to talk to you about home ownership and then let you tour some homes. Point blank. I'm not saying I know more than you. And I get that from, like, I had a plumber come over my house. Not once does the plumber say, let me educate you. I am a very educated woman. I just don't do plumbing. Yeah. So let's take our consumers or educated people and just don't do what we do.
Yeah.
So how do you talk to that person besides saying you're educating them? I really love education. I am a sponge. I like to go seek out information, but none of it that I'm consuming comes at me by saying, let me educate you. Education is great for school. You can talk to high school kids. I believe we need curriculum around education for financial literacy in high school before the student loans are signed for, before those are taken out, to talk about the return on that investment into college and what they're going to do with life. We really need to dial in on that. But that is a place of education, right?
Right.
School, college. Us grown-ups, man, we consume content and we're not, we don't get that blanket put on us like, hi, I'm educating you. It's just get to the point. Tell them what they need to know. And I think that everybody would like that. You would like that. I would like that. Tell me what you can offer me and let me decide if it's going to educate me or not. Or maybe let's have a conversation about how much I do know. Or maybe I'm great at finances and I just don't do what you do,
Yeah.
And it actually attracts a different type of person to you when you talk that way. It wasn't more, it was less of this CRA, old school, come in, I'm going to teach you how to pay your bills situation, to people that have 700 plus FICO scores, literally just having an opportunity to see somebody in person instead of on the screen of their phone. And they are just ready to pull the trigger and need to know who they want to connect with. Those are the home buyers I got when I changed my language. They're qualified. Like literally they have the means and they already have the credit. Because if you say, hey, let me educate you, the people that are readily able to admit that they're not maybe educated on something wholly would be the ones that are starting at ground zero. So as a business, from a business standpoint, that was valuable for me personally as well.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important. And also just for, just loan officers in general, if they're listening, I feel like that's really important when they're putting content out there and they're out on social media, is coming in at it of like, hey, how can you help them? How can you, solve their problems, as opposed to, I'm going to go out there and explain what this and this and this is, because I do feel like that comes across as very much of, I'm going to tell you how this
snobbish way.
Yeah. Like in a way that you're not going to understand, and you're going to be even more confused, because it's funny, I was at Starbucks the other day and there was a Gen Zer. She was a student at UCSD, and we just started talking, and somehow it got into the conversation that I do social media for our marketing company. And I asked her, I said, what would make you stop your scroll, as you're going through your feed of a mortgage loan, a loan officer or a real estate agent? She's like, oddly enough, she's like, there was a guy that I happened to see on my feed from Texas. He was a real estate agent. She goes, but I really liked his personality, what he was saying. He wasn't sounding like he was a snob. It's like he was really cool. She's like, I don't live in Texas, but if I ever moved to Texas, she's like, I would reach out to him. Absolutely. And she proceeded to say, you guys know what you're talking about. You're loan officers. You're smart. I expect you to know what you're talking about, but don't talk to me like you're trying to convince me that you're smart and you know what you're talking about. Right. She goes, because then I'm not going to believe you.
Absolutely. It's like coming out and saying, hey, I'm so trustworthy. Like instantly your radar goes up like, okay, you're
and
probably
I know everything about mortgages. You're like,
right.
Okay,
yeah, you know. But I do feel that too. We over talk the situation. We use these crazy words. I mean, debt ratio is probably the biggest life example. I don't say debt ratio to consumers.
Yeah, I love what you say.
I like to say something that's more familiar to them, which is apartment complexes have eloquently said debt ratio for years right under our noses, but we want to be the ones that sound smart and give it a different name. They tell a client that they need, 2.5 to 3 times the monthly rent to qualify. So me being the math mortgage nerd that I am, I took that $1,000 payment to $6,000 payment. And I'm like, holy smokes, it's between a 41 and 45 debt ratio every time, housing ratio, every time you figure it. And I was like, so they've been saying it for years, but won't a client that has rented resonate with 2.5 to 3 times the payment is what you need to qualify? It's the same what it takes to rent an apartment. It's familiar. It's familiar. They resonate with it. They're like, oh, okay. You're not trying to be Miss Smarty Pants with the debt ratio over here, right? So it's
but
just.
But at least you're saying debt ratio. Do you know how many people just say DTI?
Yeah. Oh.
And I'm like, okay, nobody understands what DTI.
Don't be like, well, your debt to income ratio, and then you got to give them the math to be able to figure it out. It's kind of like even us in the industry.
Okay.
When someone says, well, can you tell me how to calculate APR? You're like, well, it's just one of those things that, how about we just stop saying it because it's ridiculous.
So what do you say?
You could say it's also a debt ratio.
Yeah.
I say it takes 2.5 to 3 times the monthly payment to qualify. Because 3 times would give me a 41 to 45 back end ratio for those who use ratio, and then 41 front end. So it works, the math works, but it depends on your audience. So just connecting with them authentically, I feel, is the lesson. No matter, like you said, the weird marketing to Hispanic buyers or Black buyers that is weird because it's not authentic. It's not in the way they consume information. Just get back to the roots of how people consume information and get away from what you do. I also typically don't say pre-qualification a lot of times to first-time buyers. I don't say it because in their head, it's like, well, if I do this qualification, I get a yes or a no. I'm not ready to buy for 6 months, so I don't want to prepare. It's a home buying assessment. Let's talk first. Let's do a home buying assessment. Let's talk first, figure out which direction we need to take this in, and then we can decide our next steps. There's no in a home buying assessment. So I also have more buyers that just really, they're nervous about the process. They want to get their feet wet, but they don't want to know. They just block. They're like, oh, okay, I'll do this 6 months before, so I'm prepared. Because what is horrible is when someone needs to move next month and they come to you and, like I can't turn water into wine. Like I can't, but because it's the money, it's the credit, it's all the things that you need. And people preparation is key when buying a home. So I feel like doing an assessment of someone's situation as if you were a money manager or something of that nature is probably the best course of action for someone to be able to have the preparation that they need to be successful in their home ownership journey. And that's whether they're buying a $250,000 house or they're buying $1 million home. Everybody wants to know how to move so they can be successful in their transaction. And that's what we're doing when we give an assessment. It's not just a pre-qualification. It's bigger than that. We do so much more, and we can say it without saying a bunch more words.
Yeah. And just the way it sounds, right? Like assessing a situation sounds like you're just feeling it out, as opposed to qualification. You're like, it's either a yes or no. Either I'm qualified or I'm not. Like, and that's scary to someone.
It is, especially if you're 6 months out or 12 months out, and then you get to go crush dreams when someone gives you like, hey, I got to move in 30 days. And you're like, oh man, we need to do this. But to get this program you want, you need 5 points more on your credit score. I'm not talking about someone that just does out of the realm of qualifying. It could be something so small to get a program that they want, to get that 0 down payment that they want, to get the rate that they want. Rates are based on score too. 5 points can change everything in what you're offering someone. So that assessment in advance, 6 months before their lease is up, is something that we can go to market with and really talk about to help people prepare, to have them have a better experience in buying a home. Because people get declined, right? Not because they can't get a house. But that no is devastating. Especially with diverse buyers. If they get a no, a lot of times they're like, oh, tried it, don't want to go back to it anymore. So the buyers that are Black and Hispanic that are kind of hiding in plain sight, it's the experience that we're not really delivering to them in a manner that is great. I mean, and with technology, you can do soft credit pulls to assess a situation. You don't even have to do a hard credit pull to do this assessment, but you're giving them a more pleasing experience and allowing them to be walked through this process without it being so bumpy. So, I'd never do that again, basically, or that trauma that they have, and they're going to go tell their friend like, oh, it was rough. It's rough. If you started 60 days before you have to move. It's not rough doing an assessment 6 months before that lease is up, so you can plan and adequately plot out your road to ownership.
Yeah. Well, so let me, because we're getting close to the time, I want to know, are you talking to specific agencies or like government agencies about actually changing the terminology, or is it just more of like kind of this grassroots where you're out there just speaking on stages, doing these type of things, talking about it? Or is there like an actual plan that you're working on? I'm just curious.
Some of both, but
okay.
I think that I wanted to do it for myself. That's where I love that I work at NAF. Our CEO, Patty Aravello, just being so open-minded to the change.
Okay.
And she's like me. We're not going to wait on anybody to give us permission, right?
Yeah.
We're going to go out and we're going to just do it. Okay. So I think that everybody has that opportunity. Like I said, you have that opportunity to be exactly who you say you are. You want to help first-time buyers, you want to help Black or Hispanic buyers, then go do it. Right. So having her as my boss allows me to be able to go out and act on this right now. So we have made those changes already here at NAF. But yes, talking to different agencies, my state of Nevada housing division here, they use that terminology for doing an assessment now exclusively. Because if you're going to help the people you say you want to help, this is what you have to do. It's not a choice. And then when it becomes the majority of those who are buying homes, it's no longer the minority, it's the majority of who will be buying homes. You will fall in line too, but I hope it's not too late for your earnings, because you're behind the power curve of what that looks like to market them in a way that they're comfortable being marketed and talked to, and throwing out some of this old Fair Housing Act. Again, think of 1968. You can't do that.
No.
You can't. The terminology that was used for Black home buyers in 1968 is nothing that anybody is attracted to, or it sounds pleasing to them. And it could be triggering, super triggering to people because of the language that you use. Even though you mean no harm, it's just you're still stuck in 68. So they want to use somebody that's not.
Yeah. And that's the key, is we as an industry understand that we have to evolve. You know, a lot of us are evolving because of social media and the way that we can go directly to the consumer. We don't have to rely so much on the real estate referral and all of those things. I feel like this is part of the evolution, is actually changing the way you speak and the words that you're using. I think that's really key, because once again, like the younger generations, they can't relate to all that at all. They're being brought up in such a different way, and we have to acknowledge that too, because they're their future home buyers. So I feel like it all lends to itself. But I love, like you said, at least we're at a company that it's like willing to just, well, let's just do it and go out there and talk about it and hopefully have people follow. So you're really, you know, you and Patty and the other leaders are like leading the way. And I love that. You know, that's where it begins, has to start somewhere.
Exactly. Or you'll sit and you'll wait for everybody else around you to agree and give you permission. And that's not what the leadership where I work, you know, does. And we're also largely female here. So we've got so many.
53% of our company are female.
Yes, my bosses are women. That is like a first for me, being in mortgage over 20 years. It's amazing, right? Because when you talk to them about how women want to be marketed, again, they didn't have to go ask somebody that's not in mortgage what they thought. It's because we're women and we have brought our lived experiences to the table to make mortgage better. So
and that's a key thing for everybody to kind of take away too, is your experience. So you need to share more of the experiences that you're having with your clients and how you're changing things for them and the story behind it. So it has to be more of experience, as opposed to you just sitting there educating and just talking about something that makes zero sense. Like, make it an experience for someone.
It is. It needs to be an experience. And if you really double down on marketing to Black and Hispanic buyers in a way that they actually consume content and messaging, man, you can't do anything but go right, especially in profits and mortgages and things like that. Because I feel like mortgage it's its own product. It is a thing that people have to buy into in order to feel or see themselves in home ownership. And we just lack that when it comes to mortgage. It's more of this technical, rigid process. So,
oh my gosh. Well, I feel really honored that you were my first guest because like I could listen to you all day long, and I feel really lucky that I have the opportunity to do that if I want to. But I'm glad that you were able to share a lot of your knowledge, because I'm sure there's some people here that haven't had the opportunity to hear you speak. And we had even Susie Lindblom come in, and Ashley, and like, so yeah, and there's a lot of people that do, watch the replay, but I know that people are going to get so much out of this. If anybody has like questions or wants to reach out to you, like, is there a way they can do that? Like, are you okay with anybody?
Yeah, they can follow me on Instagram. It's my name, Mosi, Mosi Gatling _ or on LinkedIn at Mosi Gatling. Hit me up, DM me. I'm always open to a good conversation. We can dive into my real why, like I said, and hey man, let's go make some change in the mortgage biz.
I love that. This is such a great start to the show. Yay. Well, thanks again. And thanks for everyone watching, and we'll see you. It's going to be, so this last time I had the show was every single Wednesday, but it was a little too much for me. So we're going to do every other Wednesday. So, and I think my next guest is Kelly Gale. So I don't know if you met her. She was a Housing Wire.
Yeah.
She has a marketing agency in the industry. So we're going to talk to her next time. But thanks again, Mosi, and just stay on. They're just going to end it, and we'll just be done with the show.
Thank you.